Hey guys, sorry it's been a while. We've been working on some cool stuff for you guys, but we are hopefully back up in production. For now, we have a interesting take on a zoo style strategy in Modern. I'm still tuning it. It's not perfect, but I did top 4 the final Modern PPTQ of the season with this deck, and there should be an article going up with this. This will be the updated list, so hopefully these will be going up on the same week, if not the same day. I'll see if I can't manage to get that done right. I'll just have to find out what day the article will go up, and then I'll post this on the same day. Hopefully, if everything goes right. If not, you guys will be able to see this, and you'll be able to see the list I played and top forward with, and read what I lost to. So that'll be fun. For now, let's go ahead and get into the deck. We're going to start off with Gore Clan Rampagers. I did not play those. I expected a much more mid-rangey field than what was actually there. There was a ton of aggro decks there. There were 7 affinity decks. I did not show up properly tuned with this deck to beat against affinity. Luckily, I only had to play against one guy. I had to play against it twice, though, but I only had to play against one affinity player. So, we do have 2 Gore Clan Rampagers. This can be a creature in the deck if you get to 4 mana and don't need to Blood Rush it. But normally you're going to be using this for the +4/+4 in Trample mode. It's a way to beat through a Tarmogoyf. It's a way to save your guy from a lightning bolt in the middle of combat after blocks or something. If they do it before damage. Stuff like that. It can also just pound through the final points of damage if need be. +4/+4 in Trample for 2 mana that can't be countered. It's pretty good. Pretty good. And I feel good to be playing this guy again. I haven't played him for a while, and I'm happy playing him again. 4 Loxodon Smiters, 3 mana, 4/4 uncounterable for 3 mana. As I used to say, this card is just bonkers. And I'm still saying it now, because I'm playing him again. But it also has the upside of, if your opponent, say, plays a Liliana and +1s, you will have to, and makes you discard a card. You can choose this card, Loxodon Smiter, and its effect will put it into play. Oh, this did matter once against a red-black mid-range player I played against. But if your opponent also Inquisitions or Thoughtseizes, and you can play the other cards in your hand if, say, they're not very good right now, then you get a free 4/4 for your opponent paying 1 mana. Like, say your opponent Inquisition Kozileks you, and you play your Path to Exile and Brave the Elements in response. Kill their guy, get rid of the Brave the Elements that's not doing anything anyway, and you get a free 4/4. It's not too shabby. It also evolves Experiment 1 into 4/4, which can matter a whole lot. As it turns out, that will matter having a 4/4 over 3/3 sometimes. 3 Fleece Main Lion, mainly because it's just another way to make the Experiment 1 in the deck the only non-white creature outside of Gore Clan Rampager, which isn't truly a creature in the deck, but can be. It's just because, once again, making Experiment 1 bigger than a 2/2 can really matter. Getting the 2 counters on it so it can regenerate is going to matter a lot, as we'll see when we get to it. But this also has the upside of being a much better Watch Wolf, as it can become hexproof and indestructible. Though I had the mana to do this once, it was also against a Tron player. Wouldn't really mattered, because all is dust. Ugin. Pretty good cards. So, it can matter if you're up against Jund players, making this a 4/4 hexproof indestructible. If you have, Liliana proof, this guy can probably just win the game if you can beat through a Tarmogoyf or a Tasker. With Gore Clan Rampager and Path, it shouldn't be too hard. But it can also just be a really good blocker against those cards if you can't draw your removal spells. It can really stall up a board sometimes. But it's also just fairly aggressive as a 2-mana 3/3. 1 Solid Pride Mage, because the card's just overall very good. If you can't read the promo in the camera, it's green-white for a 2/2 Exalted. Exalted is whenever creature you control attacks alone gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And you can tap 1 and sacrifice a target Artifact enchantment. This is just a really solid card. It makes Experiment 1 a 2/2 and makes it attack for 3 on turn 2. It makes any of the 1-drops in the deck actually attack for 3 on turn 2, unless you have Loam Lion and not a Forest, and manage to play Solid Pride Mage, which is possible, but highly unlikely. With this deck, it would involve you having the 1 Razor ticket. But it's a very good, just solid creature. It doesn't distract from your game plan, as well as being able to main deck card that can kill things like Spellskite, Splinter Twin. Against affinity players, sometimes being able to kill Cranial Plating might be your only hope of winning in Game 1, which is an awful matchup. But hey, you have to have hope. It's the only way you can win. So it's just a nice, solid creature at 2 mana. Not amazing, not terrible, and just really good for your game plan. Vor Soldier of the Pantheon. Not the most amazing creature in Modern by any means, but the fact that it dodges Terminate, Abrupt Decay, Electrolyze, Kolgan's Command. Those are the 4 main ones right now that I can think of. Obviously, it does not dodge Lightning Bolt or Path to Exile, but none of our deck dodges Lightning Bolt or Path to Exile, except for Luckland Spider and Gore Clan Rampager, only dodging Bolt. So the fact that this dies to Bolt, completely irrelevant, as our whole deck will die to Bolt. But the fact that it can dodge a ton of other removal spells our opponents might have later in the game can matter a whole lot. As well as against a deck like Green-White Hate Bears, this can be really hard for them to handle. Voice Returns can't block it, their Lockdown Spider can't block it, Kasali Pride Mage can't block it, Sigarda can't block it. Every time your opponent plays a multi-creature spell, you gain 1 life, that might matter. It can matter a whole lot. Even against a Bogles player, if they only have a Slippery Bogle and no way to give it Trample, this can actually block it. You have no idea when that might matter, guys. And then there's 4 Dryad Militants. Just another solid aggressive 1-drop with 2 power. With all this Grixis decks going around, using Murderous Cut and Tassiger and Gurmag Ingler, this is a really good way to just make those cards cost more. If you can't read it through the foil shiny, it is if an instant or sorcery card would go into a graveyard from anywhere, exiled instead. You also never know when you might run against Storm. This card is just a very solid creature, 1 power for 2 mana, though not the most amazing rate in Modern, with cards like Wild and the Cattle and Experiment 1 being in the format, which can be 1 mana 3/3s. This card is still extremely powerful. 1 mana for 2 power is a pretty good rate, and one of the better rates you can get in Modern on your 1-drops, compared to like a bunch of the 1 mana creatures that are playable in Modern. The 1 toughness is a little soft, but outside of our opponent having Electrolyze, that won't really matter. And since our whole deck dies Bolt anyway, still doesn't matter. But the upside of it being an aggressive creature that can exile instant sorceries can really matter in a format full of Grixis. It can matter against Gen players with Taskers and maybe Murderous Cuts in their deck. Normally just Tasker, but not Murderous Cut. It can mess with Goyfs quite well if you play it on turn 1. It can make your opponent's Goyfs much smaller if they don't use a removal spell in Dryad Militant, thinking it's not worth it. So that can matter a whole lot. Just a nice, really solid creature that can mess up your opponent's game plan. 4 Loam Lions, because it's a 1 mana 1/1, but it gets +1/+2 if you control 4, so it's a 2/3. The important thing about that is it will make Experiment 1 a 3/3, because Evolve checks toughness as well as power. So if you go turn 1 Experiment 1, turn 2 Dryad Militant or Soldier with Pantheon into Loam Lion as well, you'll have a 3/3 and attack with it, or a double Loam Lion, always possible. It also makes Electrolyze a lot worse against this deck. As you can see, our only true 1 toughness creatures in this deck are the Soldier and the Dryad Militant. Experiment 1 will be a 1/1 the turn you play it, which can make it exposable to remove spells for a turn if you don't have a way to evolve it right away. Which will sometimes happen. Your opponent will sometimes have Electrolyze when that happens, but you can't avoid it. The best thing to do is just play your cards. And Loam Lion is pretty good at playing those cards. Also, having more than 2 toughness can dodge Kolgan's Command, which can matter a whole lot. You never know. Kolgan's Command can be a removal spell against this deck, and having as much creatures as possible to dodge it will probably matter in a game against Jund, where you don't want them to, you want to mess with their removal as much as possible while playing cards like Soldier of the Pantheon, and playing things that won't die to Kolgan's Command on top, since they already have Lightning Bolt and Terminate. You don't want as resilient creatures as possible. Loam Lion having 3 toughness makes it resilient to a fair amount of removal spells, and makes it definitely worth playing. And then the 4 Experiment ones, it is a 1/1 with Evolve. Evolve is whenever a creature you control enters the battlefield that has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. He also has 1 more line of ability at the bottom. Remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Experiment 1, or generate Experiment 1. So he's a super resilient threat. Obviously he will not dodge Terminate, but if you can get the 2 counters on him before your opponent can Lightning Bolt him, he'll dodge Lightning Bolt by being able to regenerate. He can become a 4/4 with Loxodon Spider and Gore Clan Rampager in the deck. And the reason to play this above a card like Wild and Cattle in this deck, because you don't always draw mountains, and you don't always want your mountains. There's only 2 Gore Clan Rampagers and 4 Bolts in the main deck that are red, so you won't always need red mana to win the game. So having this can matter a lot when you don't need to fetch up a red mana, especially if you have to shock for it, which can matter against other aggressive decks. Then being able to just fetch a red land tapped, or fetch up non-red sources because you don't need them to play Magic, can make this card a lot better than Wild and the Cattle can be in those games, especially if you need to fetch a basic to save life and still be casting your spells on time. Like, say you're playing against Burn. You have no red spells, you have 5 cards you can play in your hand, you just need to fetch a basic. You don't need a dual land, So you might as well just fetch up the basic you need, cast your spells, save your life, and try to be as aggressive as possible, and probably not draw one of your only 6 red cards on the main deck. But, on top of that, he's just really cool and really powerful, and a card I really like. So, the fact that he fits in this deck is really nice for me. Maybe it should be a white creature to fit with the Brave the Elements in the deck. But, if I can find a more aggressive 1-white creature that's not a card like Kithion, which I don't want more than a 1 of in this deck, then we'll see. There is also 2 collected companies in the deck. This card is making a big deal in Modern, and it certainly fits into this kind of a deck. Really good against control decks, having a way to get 2 creatures when they say if they tap out for a Wrath in game 1 or 2, and you can just refill your board. Luckily, hopefully you'll get 2 Luxon Smiters every time you play this card. Well, most times you'll play this card. There will be times you want like a Solid Pride Mage or a Fleece Mainline or something. But this card is just really solid at 4 mana, and only having 20 lands and 4, 8, 12, 14, 16 total cards in the deck on top of so 36 cards that Collector Company can't hit, including itself. You are highly likely to get at least 1, probably 2 creatures off every Collector Company you hit, so this card will be very good whenever you play it. Normally, anyway, not every time. 4 Path to Exiles, just the best removal spell you can play in this kind of a Modern deck. You need to get through things with more than 3 toughness, since our removal spells Lightning Bolt or Pump spells Gorkland Rampager. You do need to be able to kill things like Tarmogoyf and Tasigur when your opponent's not blocking with them. Primeval Titans, things that are just really hard to kill. Path to Exile can do that, and you need the card to do that. Sadly, you need it. If I didn't have to play Path to Exile in this deck, I wouldn't. I would just play another card like Lightning Helix. But if you also killing Deceiver Exarchs can matter a whole lot against your twin opponents. So, sadly, is a necessary card for this deck. As great as it is, it may not fit the strategy of this deck, but it's certainly worth the downside it comes with. And then 4 Brave the Elements. This card is 1 white creatures you control gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. That's the whole reason I'm actually playing this deck. It's a variant of Brave Naya and Zoo. Brave the Elements can punch through a mono red burn players, because the board can get stalled for them. They need sometimes only be on the defensive and just try to burn you out before you can kill them. Brave the Elements will allow you to punch through their defense and kill them on 1 attack. Same with Fish. And against decks like Jund, it can just be a way to counter a removal spell, which can really stop them from forwarding their game plan. They need to kill your guys in order to stabilize, and if they can't kill your guys, you can keep building up a board. A second Brave the Elements can really allow you to get through their blockers and finish the game. Now, this card is truthfully one of the best cards in the deck. There are obviously a few decks in Modern that it's not good against. Affinity being the main one, and then several of the unfair decks in Modern, things like Tron. But you'll still need it for cards like Pyroclasm Ring of the Gods. And then against decks like Goryo's Vengeance, where it doesn't matter. But those are also decks that this deck just really can't beat anyway. So the fact that we have 1 card that isn't good against those decks doesn't really matter, because our deck's not good against those decks. And then we have 4 Lightning Bolts, 1 mana, 3 damage, staple of Modern. This is a red deck. It's the main reason to play red in this deck. Green-white beatdown is a good strategy, but I definitely like having burn spells as reach. So 4 Lightning Bolt and 2 Gorkland Rampager to help be able to finish out the game. And then our mana base, 4 basics. Some fetches, some shocks, 2 Stirring Wildwoods. It's a man land for 1 green-white, becomes a 3/4 elemental with reach until end of turn. It enters taps at green or white. Man lands are very good. And it's white. That's the biggest deal. If you can play this, say you animate this, you can block, and you can still cast a Brave the Elements, which did come up a couple times in playtesting and at the PPTQ. That can matter a whole lot, so definitely worth keeping in mind. And then the 1 Razor Rich Ticket, because I don't want Horizon Canopy in the deck. I don't think. I want another painful source of mana. The drawing a card's not super relevant. If I cut this, it'd rather be for a spell, or for maybe another Stirring Wildwood. We'll find out. But here's the main deck of this deck, and I'll see you guys for the sideboard. Yes, welcome back to the sideboard. We'll go and get right into it. Oh, we have 2 Kitchen Finks. This comes in against most decks. You just need to know what's bad against them, and since it is a 3-drop, it is certainly not better than Loxodon Smiter in most game 1s, but it's fairly good against Jund and super aggressive strategies such as Burn and Affinity. Fairly good against other mid-rangey decks, where having a creature that will be able to attack twice or block twice can matter a whole lot. It can gain 4 life, which is why it's good against Burn and aggressive decks, and it's white, so Brave the Elements will make it really good sometimes. Plus, it can still evolve Experiment 1 into 3-power creature, which is what we want from our 3-drops. So it's just a fairly solid overall creature. It's just kind of a resilient threat, and is nice access to have. 2 Core Firewalker for a burn. It also comes in against Blue-Red Twin and Scape Shift, as those decks can have a really hard time killing a Core Firewalker. And even the Grixis decks can, because if they don't have Murderous Cut, and if you have Brave the Elements for that Murderous Cut, this Core Firewalker can be extremely difficult for them to kill, especially if you can clear out random blockers they'll have for it, like Snapcaster. If they want to trade a Delver with this, I'm not sure you're too upset about that trade if they're playing Grixis Delver. And if you have Path for Snapcaster or Pestermine, and then the only other thing to worry about is Grimag Angler. But card's just a problem for this deck anyway. But this is just a really solid overall card. It's Hoser for burn, which is a reason to have it. Just nice to have. And then Grand Abolisher. This card is just kind of a solid 2/2 for 2. Essentially, your opponent can't do anything but activate Planeswalkers and use lands on your turn. Yeah, he's just a solid 2/2 for 2. The main reason to be playing him was for the Grixis decks. Making them have to use removal spell on their turn is fine. But the fact that they can't counter things on your turn, which Lockdown Smiter being the best card in the matchup, making all your cards similar to a Lockdown Smiter is going to be very good. The fact that they'll have to use a removal spell on their turn if he resolves is also going to matter. Like, at all. And if they don't kill him, then you just get to keep playing Magic on your turn, not worrying about what they're doing unless they're twin. In which case, all you have to do is hold up the 1-white Path, and if they play... Hold on. No, they can't even cast it. They have to main phase their combo piece and hope you don't have a way to interact with it. So, if you're playing against Grixis Twin, they're going to have to kill this before they can truthfully try to play any Magic at all. But this card's also just kind of solid. 2/2 for 2 is not terrible. Plus, there might also be other random decks. If you ever run into a random control like a Modern, which sometimes happens, then your effect your opponent can interact with you on your turn is going to matter a whole lot. So, just really solid creature. 4 Kentucky Wars Wage. Let me just move this over really fast so you can read the English one. This is my Affinity Hoser. That is easily the worst matchup for this deck. It could be correct to just sideboard Stony Silence, but I'd rather have a creature rather than an enchantment. I can grab Katakis off of Collecting Companies, which can matter a whole lot. Which is the reason to be sideboarding these. They also stack better in multiples than Stony Silences ever will. And the fact that if your Affinity opponent's playing off of like 1 or 2 lands and a single mana rock, this is going to stop them almost immediately from playing the game unless they can kill it on the spot. If they go to their turn, this will trigger, and then they have to pay for a lot of artifacts. The game is probably over at that point. But, solid 2 mana, 2 power creature. If you just can't keep any removal spells against it, like say you're playing against Storm, you do not want your Path to Exiles. You probably have better cards to be bringing in, but hey, you never know. Probably don't bring this in, but if you ever go against a deck where removal is completely the worst thing in the world and burn spells are not good, your 4-drops are awful, you literally just sideboard on all these creatures and hope it's fast enough. Probably won't be if you're doing that, but hey, do what you gotta do to try and win games of Magic. 1 Pyroclasm, also for Affinity. The fact that a lot of our threats will survive a Pyroclasm is a big deal. It's also fairly decent against Hate Bears. If you board in Core Firewalker against a deck alongside Pyroclasm, your Core Firewalker will survive. A deck like Goblins would be the only reason you would do that. But, that might matter. Just having a nice little pseudo-Plague Wind effect for this deck when you bring it in, it's going to matter a whole lot. And your opponents will normally not see this coming, so it's a huge surprise factor. Now, right now, I'm going to be sideboarding it. It might not be forever if Affinity ever dies down. Probably end up cutting Pyroclasm, but until Affinity dies down, we'll definitely be having this in my sideboard, because the main way they can beat this deck is by flooding the board and having a Signal Pest. And Steel Overseer. And having a way to kill everything at once can really be a big deal, even if it sets you back just a little. 1 Forked Bolt, Grixis Delver is a deck. There's plenty of other small creature decks. It's also fairly good against Affinity. Can easily kill 2 creatures. That have 1 toughness. There's plenty of creatures in the deck that have 1 toughness. And the fact that it can still go to the face might matter. So it's removal spells that can also go to the face. So it's a good reason to bring in. It can kill 2 things instead of 1, which is a reason to have it over a card like Pillar Flame. So just a nice little solid utility removal spell. 1 Celestial Purge. There are plenty of black and red permanents in Modern. Ley Lines, Blood Moons, Liliana of the Veil, Raging Ravine, Tassiger. If you ever go up against red, Leyline of Punishment. Like, there's just so many cards that this can hit. Borborygmos, well, not Borborygmos, because normally your opponent kills you. Grizzlebrand, plenty of cards this hits. Definitely a card to be having, and the exile can matter a whole lot. One Wear Tear, because there are artifacts, enchantments, and modern that need to get hit. This can hit them both, and every once in a while you'll get to hit 2 cards at the same time, which is the reason sideboard this over a card like Destructive Reverie. Plus, you can still cast the white half if you can't cast the red half, which might matter. And 2 Lightning Helix, 3 damage, and you gain 3 life for 2 mana. It's Lightning Bolt for 1 more that has gain 3 life. This comes in against Affinity and other small aggressive decks. It can also come in against combo decks and such where you have all those removal spells. You don't need as many removal spells. You can sideboard out, and you can sideboard out your creatures that just aren't good in the matchup. Board in these burn spells have just a bit more reach for their face, as well as just against aggressive decks. Being able to kill something and gain 3 life can matter a whole lot. And against burn, being able to kill one of their creatures and counter a burn spell can be a huge deal. So there's the deck. Not perfect just yet, but it's fairly close to... I'm very happy with it right now, and it's fairly close to where I want it to be. So I'll keep tuning this, and we'll see what happens next Modern season, because I'm probably going to keep this deck around for a while. And you guys will find out why here in a little bit in one of the big things we have planned for you guys. Sorry we haven't made anything in a while. We've just been super busy with school. We've had some extreme life drama happen that we can't talk about. We wish we could, but we can't. It's been really stressful. But things are starting to look up. So, hopefully we can keep producing videos unless life hits us again. But if that doesn't happen, you guys will hopefully keep seeing stuff for me here on YouTube and co-host like number 2. You can keep seeing my articles on MTG Bro Deals and CardConfidants.com now, as we are unveiling the new site, which should be unveiled by the time this comes out. So please, guys, go check out Card Confidants. Hopefully, will be an amazing site. We're expanding from not only Magic, but we're expanding into other branches of games on the website. So please go check that out. You can also find us on Twitter at Pearsall's blog and at Zane Pearsall are the 2 places you can find us there. You can also email us, pearsallblog@yahoo.com, and always find us here on YouTube. You can find us streaming every once in a while on Twitch. We haven't done that in a while either, but that's going to hopefully start coming back up soon. Twitch.tv/Pearsall01. So guys, please be on the lookout for that when it goes live. Hopefully in a little bit, since life's starting to calm down. School's starting up, so we're not sure about the streaming. Definitely be doing YouTube videos and writing articles on my side. So guys, that's all. If I spoke too fast, call me an idiot, and find all those places in the description below. And we'll see you next time. You guys have a great day.